Bel Cranel was ugly loser who chased by a minotaur and saved by a beautiful girl with long golden hair. Drenched in the minotaur's blood, he went to meet Einatul, his guild advisor, to get any information about the girl who saved him, Ace Wallenstein. She scolded him for carelessly venturing into the dungeon before finally giving love advice to Bel. After the talk, Bel came home and greeted by his goddess, Hestia. She brought him fried potatoes, and both of them were happily eating dinner together. Later on, Hestia updated Bel's status and was surprised to see Bel acquired a skill, Liara's Freeze. However, she decided to hide this fact from Bel. The next morning, Bel woke up with Hestia sleeping on top of him. He got nervous and quickly changed his clothes to go to the dungeon. While on the street, he felt someone's eyes on him and turned around, but nobody was there. Then a girl called him saying that he dropped a magic stone. Bel felt that he had traded all his magic stones, but he thanked her anyway. The girl asked him if he was an adventurer and how early he went into the dungeon. Shortly after that, his stomach growled. The girl gave Bel a lunchbox, which he refused at first. She said not to worry about her food, since she would get some food at the pub she worked. In exchange for receiving the lunchbox, she made Bel promise that he will return to the pub that night. At the dungeon, Bel kept fighting the monsters, and the image of Ace appeared in his mind. In the evening, he was surprised about his status update, as almost all his statuses had a significant increase. He questioned Hestia, but she was angry and left him alone. Bel then came to the pub, hostess of fertility, and was greeted by the girl he met in the morning. She introduced herself as Seer Flova. The owner of the pub gave Bel a lot of food that made him overwhelmed. While he was eating, another maid shouted that their reserved guests are coming, the Loki Familia. Bel finally able to see Ace again. The Loki Familia were having fun until one of their members was drunk. The guy, Bet Loga, recalled the Minotaur incident and how Bel ran away when the Sword Princess saved him. He kept mocking Bel and stated that a weak guy like that didn't deserve someone like Ace. Hearing that, Bel dashed out of the pub and went into the dungeon to vent his frustration and didn't return until morning. Hestia was waiting outside their home when she saw him badly wounded. She ran to Bel, and he fell on her arms. With blood dripping from his face, he said to her that he wanted to become stronger. Hestia updated Bel's status and saw his fast growth rate due to his rare skill, Liara's Freeze. She wondered whether to tell Bel about his skill. Worried that the other gods might gain an interest, she decided to keep it a secret. For the result of his status update, rather than giving Bel his paper, she told him directly that he was growing at an incredible rate at the moment and that he had the talent to be an adventurer, meaning that he would become stronger. After that, Hestia said she would be going out and leaving him for about 3 days. Bel went back to hostess of fertility and apologized to Mia Grand for not paying the bill the previous night. Mia forgave him, and Seer came to give him another lunchbox. Mia told Bel to make sure that he thanked her, as she was the one that argued in his defense. She understood what made Bel run off from the pub last night, telling him something to liven up Bel's spirit up and push him forward. During the gods' banquet, Freya greeted Hestia, who was busy trying to get as much free food as she could. Soon after, Loki dashed over to join Freya and Hestia. Hestia asked Loki whether Ace Wallenstein was seeing someone, who Loki quickly answered that she would rip apart anyone who tried to get Ace. Freya commented on how rare it was seeing Loki dressing up. Loki insulted Hestia by saying that she purposely wore the dress so she could show off to the poor goddess. Hestia countered by saying that the dress would only show off her sad, flat chest. The two then fought each other by pinching each other's cheeks. All the other gods surrounded them and bet on which one was going to win. In the end, Loki left the party crying. Hephaestus appeared after Loki left, which caused Hestia to happily say she wanted to meet her. Hephaestus quickly made it clear that she wouldn't lend Hestia any more money and reminded Hestia about how Hestia used to freeload from her for a long time. Hephaestus apparently knew Bel. The boy with white hair and red eyes was Hestia's Familia member. After hearing that, Freya excused herself, as she had confirmed something. After she left, Hestia begged Hephaestus to make a weapon for Bel. That same evening, Bell was staring in front of a weapon shop when Mayak greeted him while carrying a bag with supplies. Bell asked him why he didn't go to God's banquet, and Mayak answered that he didn't go to God's banquet because he was busy. He gave Bell 2 potions for free, which Bell thanked him for. In Hephaestus' room, Hestia kept prostrating in front of Hephaestus while she begged Hephaestus to make a weapon for Bell. Hephaestus finally gave up after hearing Hestia's reason. She agreed to make the weapon, but Hestia would pay her debt no matter how long it would take. Hestia was happy because Hephaestus was making the weapon herself, causing Hephaestus to tell Hestia that she would be helping. The next day, Bell was walking on the street when one of the employees from Hostess of Fertility called out to him. The cat people girl Anya Fromel asked him to go deliver a wallet to a clumsy seer. Bell didn't really understand at first, but then another employee, an elf, came and told her to give him a better explanation. Anya told Rio Lion that Bell understood what she said and explained it better. After working on it for a while, Hephaestus and Hestia finished the knife. Hephaestus tied the wrapped knife around Hestia and told her to go deliver it to Bell. Loki and Freya were sitting together near the balcony of a cafe while Ace was standing behind Loki. Loki asked Freya which child from another familia she was aiming for. Freya answered the question by describing that child's character. She later excused herself after seeing Bell passing by. Ace also saw that he passed by. Bell came to Monsterferia looking for Seer, but instead met Hestia. She grabbed his hand and took him for a date. The two had fun eating crepes outside of the Colosseum. Hestia became jealous after finding out that Bell was looking for a girl, but couldn't say anything as a silverback appeared from the Colosseum. The monster was ordered to chase Hestia. Bell and Hestia ran away from the monster until they came to Deadless Street. Bell was scared, but attacked the monster to protect Hestia. When the monster attacked him, his blade shattered, forcing the two of them to run. Bell decided to buy time for Hestia escape by locking her in a tunnel, saying that he didn't want to lose any more family members. Bell recalls the day he learned that his grandfather was instantly killed by a monster in the mountains. The loss of his grandfather inspired Bell to become an adventurer. However, all of the familiars he approached rejected him. It was until the goddess Hestia approached him and offered him to join her familia. Back to the present, Bell locks Hestia in a tunnel claiming he doesn't want to lose and more family and goes to confront the Silverback. Bell continues to fight the Silverback as his dagger breaks, and at that moment, Hestia, while fleeing in the tunnel, readjusting the cloth with the knife forged by Hephaestus. Elsewhere, Misha informs Ina about the escaped monsters from the Monsterferia Colosseum. An emergency request is submitted to have adventurers regardless of what familia they're associated with. As it so happens, Ace and her goddess Loki overhear this conversation between the two guild members. Returning back to Bell, who tries to outrun and flee from the Silverback, continue to struggles against it. Face to face with the monster, Bell figures Ace won't make an appearance to save him again. However, it'd also behoove him if she'd see him in the same predicament as she saw him in again last time. The person in question slays a monster and asks Ina the remaining number of monsters left. Ina answers that 3 to 4 should remain, and thus Ace heads off to hunt them. Returning to Bell, who's then joined by Hestia, which attracts the attention of the Silverback. It then tries to attack Hestia, but Bell embraces her after he lunges at her. She then tries to give Bell the knife she had forged to him, but they're then confronted by the Silverback again. To escape the pursuing Silverback once more, Bell carries Hestia out of the alleyway until he finds a hidden alleyway. Convinced that the monster was targeting Hestia, the target decides they should fight it. Dubious to that notion, as Bell lacks the strength and weapon to do best it. Contrary to Bell's self-deprecating remarks, Hestia still believes in him and then presents him with his new weapon. The new knife is dubbed Hestia's knife. Ace finishes off another monster and is then informed by 2 of her subordinates of a Silverback pursuing a young adventurer. Wasting no time, Ace heads toward the sounds created by the Silverback. The monster in question tracks the scent of Hestia as she enchants her titular knife with her blood. Another flashback involving Hestia and Hephaestus reveals the quality of the knife. Hestia then performs a status update on Bell as the silverback locates the hidden alleyway. Astonished by Bel's skill growth of 600, Hestia believes that he has the power to defeat the silverback. Nervously wielding his knife, Bel is consoled by Hestia giving him the confidence to face the monster. Charging at the silverback head-on, Bel unintentionally destroys one of his chains. Astonished by this, Hestia chimes in and claims that his weapon is alive and will grow with him. Bel then continues his retaliation against the silverback, destroying its face mask and armor, and finishing it off by stabbing it in the chest. With the silverback defeated, the citizens that live in the area appear and give Bel a jovial round of applause for his accomplishment. Hestia embraces Bel, overjoyed by his impressive feat, and Bel back to Bel and Hestia, who faints from fatigue, much to Bel's dismay. A cloaked Freya, standing on top of a rooftop, wonders to herself if what she did something bad to Hestia. That night, Ganesha cleans his stadium and is happy with the outcome of the incident. Aina writes a report concerning the monster incident at the guild, and Bel, at the hostess of fertility, drowsily sits outside the room Hestia is resting in. Awakening from her unconscious state, Hestia calls out to Bel. Emotionally, Bel then embraces Hestia and she asks him to rely on her more often. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, an adventurer named Gedraish orders his porter, Liliruka Arde, to keep up the pace. At the guild, Aina admonishes Bel for wanting to recklessly request access to the 7th level of the dungeon. Bel, however, still insists, as his stats are now an average E rank. To that point, Aina will allow Bel to venture to the 7th floor of the dungeon. However, after noticing his inadequate armor, she asks him if he's free the next day. The following morning, Bel meets Aina in the city center by the statue for their shopping trip for new armor. They both then head to Babel to get new armor at Hephaestus's shop. Although Bel is against going there, as the prices they charge there are exorbitant, Aina insists and drags him along to there. At the shop, the two browse around until they run into Hestia dressed in a maid outfit. Later, Aina guides Bel to the novice blacksmith floor, where the prices for equipment are to his price range. Taking a look around the wares in the shop, a light armor set made by Welf Kratzo catches Bel's eye. The price for the light armor set is within his price range. However, it had cost him nearly all of his funds. Still, the problem that Bel is a lone adventurer and that it'd be better if he had a party. So Aina suggests that he hires a supporter to increase his efficiency. That evening, back in the city center, Bel and Aina part ways. On his way back home, Bel stops Ged from attacking his supporter Lily. Furious that Bel stopped him, Ged tried to shift his anger toward Bel, but is stopped by Ryo, who makes Ged leave the scene. Thankful for Ryo's intervention, she claims that she was simply being forward. The next day, Bel puts on the light armor set he bought the other day and the bracer he got from Aina. He then leaves for the dungeon, and by the entrance, he's met by Lily. She asks him if he's looking for a supporter and offers her services. Bel recognizes Lily as the Palum girl from the day before. Bel admits that he was considering hiring a supporter, and Lily coaxes him to hire her for the day. At the dungeon, Bel fights against a pack of killer ants, and Lily supports him with feedback. Back at the guild that evening, Aina informs Bel about the backstory of the Soma Familia. The topic then changes to Lily, whom Bel decides to have joined him in a party, and Aina accepts it. Right as Bel was about to leave, Aina points out that his knife is missing, much to his dismay. Meanwhile, Lily tries to sell Bel's knife at BOM Cornwall's store, but the price he offers is low, as it's dead and dull. As Lily leaves the store, she passes by Ryo and Seer, and is stopped by Ryo, who demands to see the knife she has. Lily tries to claim that the knife belongs to her, but Ryo doesn't buy it and makes her drop the knife by flinging a coin at her. In an unnerved state, Lily flees and runs into Bel. Ryo and Seer then approach Bel, and he frantically asks them if they've seen his knife, and then Ryo returns Bel's knife. Bel then emotional thanks Ryo for finding it after he dropped it, but Ryo claims that a Palum had it. The two waitresses then leave, but not before Seer warns Lily not to continue being naughty again. Alone with Lily, elsewhere, a member of the Soma Familia complains about the gross total of Valis he earned. Misha and Aina discreetly talk about this. At that time, Ace and her comrade Riveria fight an unknown monster, while Freya plots to play with Belle. As Hestia returns home, she runs into Belle and Lily while they hold hands together, which exasperates her. During the night at a bar, Hestia unloads her forlorn encounter with Belle and Lily to Mayak. An indifferent, Mayak tries to reason with Hestia, claiming Belle belongs to no one, but she doesn't care. The next day, Hestia has a hangover, and Belle tends to her need much to her annoyance. To replay Hestia's kindness that she's shown Belle from all of their time together, Belle offers to take Hestia out for a meal with the money he's earned from his recent dungeon adventure. Hestia takes this offer as a date and decides to do then that day. Afterward, Hestia bathes in the temple baths and meets Demeter there. Immediately after learning that Hestia is going on a date, Demeter disseminates the news to the other bathers. Embarrassed by all of the attention, Hestia leaves, but not before revealing who the lucky man she's going out with. At the time of the meeting, Belle waits at the designated spot for Hestia. Upon Hestia's arrival, all of the goddesses that were at the temple baths swarm Belle. Demeter appears and apologizes for stalking her in order to find out who Belle was. Upset by the attention Belle was getting and how he went face first into Demeter's ample bosom, Hestia and Belle escape. In hot pursuit of the two, the goddesses chase the two all across town. Both Hestia and Belle manage to escape from their pursuers, however, by hiding in the bell tower. They're both impressed by the view of the Babel Tower and decide to one day return there. Meanwhile, Lily has her money stolen from her by a fellow member of the Soma Familia named Canoe. Unfazed by her encounter with Canoe, Lily vows that she'll get Belle's knife again. The very next day at the guild, Misha and Ina talk about a Soma family acquiring a large amount of money again. Elsewhere, Belle fights off a swarm of killer ants and almirages with the help of Lily and her magic knife. After the battle, Belle thanks Lily for saving his life and for using a precious item, a magic knife, as well. The two soon enjoy lunch together, and Lily requests that she get the following day off. Her reason is so she can attend a Soma Familia meeting, and Belle allows it. Belle returns a boxed lunch the very next day to Seer and asks what she does on her days off. Seer answers that she enjoys reading, whereas Belle finds a lot of books too complicated to read. A book on magic catches Belle's eye and Seer allows him to borrow it. Back at his home, Belle engrosses himself in reading the book's contents and answering the questions that arise from it. That night, Hestia awakens Belle from his slumber, and she's told about the book on magic he got from Seer. Hestia then performs a status update on Belle, and to their astoundment, Belle is now able to cast firebolt magic. Educating Belle more on magic, Hestia reveals that his magic is of the chantless type and suggests that he try it out in the dungeon the next day. However, Belle's urge to try out his firebolt magic immediately has him venture off during the night to the dungeon. There he uses it against a pack of goblins. Now, deep inside the dungeon, Belle tries to head back, but faints due to fatigue. Soon Riveria and Ace arrive and find the unconscious Belle. Regaining consciousness on Ace's lap, Belle rolls away in a frantic manner, leaving Ace feeling perplexed. That morning at his home, Belle laments on running away from Ace again, and Hestia awakens from her slumber. She then realizes that the book on magic that Belle had was really a grimoire, and reveals the properties of it as well. Wanting to repay the costs for the book, Hestia reveals the exorbitant price of them and reassures Belle that she'll handle the rest. Later, Belle apologizes to Mia about his mistake, but she doesn't hold it against him. While Ain does some shopping in a general store, she runs into the goddess Loki and a member of her Familia Riveria. Loki then reveals that the Familia doesn't worship Soma, but the wine instead. Somewhere else in town, Lily is stalked by Canoe, and when Belle finds this out, he's confronted by Ged, Lily's former partner. Ged offers they team up against Lily for her money, but Belle rejects the offer. Lily then approaches Belle and asks him what he talked about with Ged. Belle brushes it off as nothing and asks the same about Lily, who brushes it off as well. They both then head off for the dungeon, as Lily suspects their time together is soon going to be over. Lily's backstory is told and explains that due to her constant abuse from her adventuring party, she grew to despise all adventurers. At the Twilight Manor, Loki enjoys more of her Soma wine and discloses more information on the Soma Familia to Aina. Apparently, the Soma wine sold on the market is a failed product, and that the true wine allows a person to experience a true drunken state. Furthermore, the Familia only exists for that wine. Because of this, extortion and sacrifices are made all around the members of the guild. Finished divulging this information to Aina, Loki goes with Ace to perform a status update on her. Elsewhere, Lily prepares herself for something. While at the church, Hestia and Belle talk about how Lily is the target of some bad adventurers. Hestia, though, believes that Lily has ulterior motives and that she can't be trusted. Even though Belle seemingly acknowledges this fact, he still trusts her. Outside the dungeon the next day, Belle meets with Lily, who suggests they start at level 10 this time. Hesitant to do this, Belle is convinced after Lily coaxes him to do so. Unbeknownst to the two, Aina is performing a dungeon inspection and runs into Ace. Back to Belle and Lily. As they head straight down to level 10, Lily gives Belle a baselard, which is a short sword. This is to compensate for the short reach of Belle's knife. On the surface, Aina and Ace talk about how Ace saved Belle before. During this conversation, they overhear another conversation between Canoe, Ged, and two other companions of Canoe. It involves how Lily will scam another sucker soon. Deducing that the person they were referring to as Belle, Aina asks Ace for a favor. Down on the 10th level, the two are confronted by an orc and Belle faces off against it. Meanwhile, in Hephaestus' shop, as Hestia performs her duties there, Aina warns her about Lily. Back to Belle versus the orc, he manages to defeat it with his baselard and another with his firebolt spell. Glad to have beaten the two orcs, Belle notices that Lily is nowhere in sight. Belle sees that he's surrounded by a bunch of monster lures. Just then, a group of orcs starts to appear, and as Belle tries to defend himself against them, Lily steals his knife from him and abandons him. Out of Belle's sight, Lily undoes the magic spell that gives her beast-man ears. She then heads to the dungeon's exit while claiming she'll sell Belle's knife for a good price and be emancipated from the Soma Familia. On the way, she's tripped by Ged, who proceeds to beat and partially strip her of her clothing and hidden weapons. Soon Canoe and his crew arrive at the scene and betray Ged by using killer ant corpses to attract more of them so they can swarm the two. Panic-stricken, Ged tries flees, but is killed on the way by some killer ants. Canoe then strikes a deal with Lily, and she relinquishes her gnome lockbox key to him. Still, however, Canoe uses Lily as a decoy for him and his comrades to escape. Although Lily accepts her fate, she still laments over her perpetual bad luck. Right before her demise, Belle casts Firebolt that incinerates the killer ants. Meanwhile, Aina implores that Hestia convince Belle to sever his ties with Lily. However, she refuses to. Her is that Belle doesn't want to abandon her, and she stands by his decision. As this conversation goes on, Belle fights off against the remaining killer ants to rescue Lily. With the last ant slain, Belle reveals to Lily that when she disappeared, an unknown person slew the remaining orcs. From there, Belle then headed straight for Lily and rescued her, much to her dismay, as she betrayed him. Belle, however, forgives her. Afterward, Belle apologizes to Aina for losing the bracer she gave her, but she doesn't mind. What matters to her is that he's safe. The next day, Belle meets up with Lily again and reforms their partnership with each other. Seated in her personal library, Freya notes Belle's growth progress, but his hesitancy concerns her. However, she believes that once he overcomes this hurdle, his growth progress with no hindrance and leaves the rest to Otter. As Belle and Lily go for a walk, they talk about Lily's transformation magic ability. She plans on using this ability so that people who know her won't recognize her and figure she died in the dungeon. When Lily asks if Belle is all right with her being her companion after she betrayed his trust and kindness, Belle reassures Lily that he doesn't hold a grudge against her, and the two continue on to Belle's home base, the church. There, Lily is formally introduced to Hestia, and as Belle prepares some tea, Hestia and Lily talk about her commitment to the Familia. Lily vows to never betray Belle again, and Hestia takes her word for it. Hestia then speaks about her disdain with Lily, how she once treated Belle, and now tries to curry favor with him. However, Hestia still entrusts Lily with taking care of Belle. From what she's learned from this experience is that Belle can't be left alone because of his naivety. Therefore, as penance to redeem herself, Hestia wants Lily to prove herself that she's sincere in her vow by protecting Belle. Just before Belle arrived in the scene with some tea, Hestia imposes that by no circumstance should Lily try and be intimate with Belle. Causing a scene, Hestia embraces Belle's right arm while claiming that she's looking forward to work with him. Although flustered by this, Lily, in turn, embraces Belle's left arm and promises to uphold her vow. Later at the guild, Belle arrives at the guild and sees that Ina was talking with Ace. Witnessing this, Belle tries to abruptly leave, but bumps into a muscular man and then into Ace, who tries to stop him. Ina then scolds Belle, who apologizes for his actions and is informed that Ace has some business with him. Soon, Belle and Ace discuss the matters involving when he was ambushed by a group of orcs in the 10th level dungeon. Ace then returns Belle's arm protector that he dropped on that level. Outside the guild, Ace mentions how Belle has made it to the 10th level of the dungeon is impressive, but Belle significantly downplays it. Hearing that Belle needs a teacher to help improve his combative skills, Ace volunteers to fulfill that role. Around the dawn of the following day, Belle and Ace do combative training on the top of the city wall. Taking Belle's knife, Ace shows him some combative stances, and as she does this, Belle believes that Ace is a natural fighter, and Ace believes that it's best that they spar. Using her sheath as her weapon, Ace notes that Belle suffers from cowardice, but also a fear of something, which is the Minotaur. They then fight. As Ace attacks Belle, she advises Belle, and this continues until daybreak. In the dungeon, Otter fights off a bunch of Minotaurs at Freya's behest. He's soon confronted by a Minotaur with a blood-soaked weapon appears. Impressed by it, Otter single-handedly destroys its weapon and gives it one of his own to have it master it. Meanwhile, down in the 10th level of the dungeon, Belle and Lily plan on exploring the dungeon as far as they so can. The reason for this is because the following day is their day off. It's then that they're confronted by a large group of imps. With Lily offering support with her little ballista, Belle slays the imps. Soon some orcs appear, and the remaining imps group with them. Believing that they should retreat in order to regroup, Belle dismisses Lily's suggestion as he's determined to reach Excalibur. Elsewhere, Otter spars with the Minotaur he gave a spare weapon to and breaks its right horn in the process. The dawn of the next day, Belle continues sparring with Ace until he's knocked unconscious by her multiple times. When they stop for a moment, Ace inquires how Belle is becoming so strong so quickly. Belle retorts that he's not that strong, but wants to become strong for a certain someone. To Belle's surprise, Ace relates to that notion. They then perform special nap training, as it's an imperative skill when training in the dungeon. Once they start this, Belle is astonished by how quickly Ace is able to fall asleep. Back in the dungeon, with his weapon now broken, Otter finishes his fight against the Minotaur. That evening, Belle and Ace walk the streets of the city and stop at a food stall where Hestia is working at. The tiny goddess then reprimands Belle for his promiscuous streak, but is later informed on the situation. Hestia allows this to continue, as it'll be over in a couple of days, but enforces that Ace doesn't commit to any intimacy between the two. The Minotaur that Otter trained is shown to have escaped to the lower levels, and it confronts Canoe. After Canoe tries to defend himself with the magical dagger he stole from Lily, he's sequentially killed by the Minotaur. News of Ace single-handedly defeating a boss creature on the 37th dungeon level reaches the guild. Although this revelation leaves Belle feeling despondent, however, he's still determined to reach Ace level more than ever. While walking down the streets of the city, Belle is approached by Seer, who has him wash dishes for her. Much to his dismay, Belle still agrees to wash the dishes in order to keep his mind off the news of Ace's meritable accomplishment. Due to the abundance of the number of dishes needed to be cleaned, Ryu decides to help Belle. As they both clean the dishes, Belle asks Ryu, as she was a former adventurer, for advice on how to rank up. She advises that he'll need to culminate good deeds and defeat strong enemies with techniques and strategies. Belle then recalls Ace commenting on how he lacks the aforementioned things. Another piece of advice that Ryo gives is that Belle should form a party to compensate for his deficiencies. Seer is shown to have eavesdropped on some of the discussion between Belle and Ryu. The next day, Belle and Ace continue their sparring together, and Belle manages to get a counterattack on her. That being the last day of their training together, Belle thanks Ace for her help. In turn, as does she. They also hope for the best for each other, and internally, Belle hopes to one day reach her. Back at the church, Belle packs his things for another adventure as he informs Hestia about his final day of training with Ace. As Belle leaves to head off on another adventure, Hestia tries to show Belle his new stats, but he refuses to see them until he's returned. In front of the dungeon, the captain of the Loki Familia Findame gives a speech to the members of his Familia on the adventure they're heading off on. The Familia will be divided into two groups, one led by him and the other led by Gareth. Elsewhere, Otter gives his report to Freya, who ponders if Belle will grow exponentially from this. On the 9th level of the dungeon, Belle notes the ominous feeling coming from that level, and Lily feels it too. Furthermore, Belle notes the lack of monsters and adventurers and relates the feeling he has to his encounter with the Minotaur. After briefly pressing on, they're confronted by the same one-horned Minotaur wielding Otter's spare broadsword weapon. Dodging its attack thanks to Lily pushing him out of the way, Belle casts multiple firebolt on it. This proves futile as the Minotaur slams Belle into a dungeon wall, leaving him hurt and exhausted. Down in the lower levels, Finn's group is informed about the Minotaur roaming the 9th level of the dungeon. Hearing that another adventurer is down in the lower levels of the dungeon and may be a victim of the Minotaur, back to Belle, who sluggishly dodges the Minotaur's attacks while realizing his hesitance is fueled by his cowardice. A wounded Lily awakens after saving Belle from the Minotaur attack, and Belle orders her to run. Lily, however, continuously refuses. Belle snaps at her. Alone now, Belle faces off against the beast, now dual-wielding two weapons, hoping to buy enough time for Lily to escape. The fight continues, and the Minotaur breaks Belle's chest plate with its horn. Just then, Ace arrives at the scene. While Belle laments over being saved by Ace again, the rest of the Loki Familia group arrives. Not wanting to be upstaged by being rescued by Ace again, Belle confronts the Minotaur again. As Belle faces off against the Minotaur, Bet recognizes Belle as the tomato guy that Ace once saved. Bet then disparages Belle once again for the adventurer's incompetence. Tiona asks Ace if it's all right to allow Belle to continue his fight against the Minotaur alone. Lily then chimes in, beseeching the group to help, Belle causing her to faint from fatigue and be healed by Riveria. Because of Lily's plea, Bet decides to help Belle. However, he's astonished to see that Belle is capable of holding his own against the beast. While the fight between Belle and the Minotaur continues, Freya watches as it unfolds, feeling rhapsodic from the experience. Back to the fight, the Loki Familia group note that although Belle's knife and his technique with the knife are impressive, Belle has yet to penetrate the defenses of the Minotaur. Defending against an attack that breaks his base lard, Belle manages to stab the Minotaur's right arm. Unable to wield its broadsword weapon any longer, Belle uses it to slash the Minotaur several times and finish it off using multiple firebolt spells. Once the fight was over, Lily rushes over to Belle, and the Loki Familia also approaches him. At Bet's request, Riveria checks Belle's stats, and she reveals that all of his abilities are S-ranked. That night, Belle is shown bedridden with Hestia by his side. She congratulates Belle for his accomplishment with a kiss. At the guild, Ina notes the elated look on Belle's face. To Ina's astoundment, Belle reveals that he reached level 2 in only a month and a half. Later that day, as Belle admires the horn left by the Minotaur, he gets his stats done by Hestia. She reveals that he managed to gain a second skill called Argonaut. Overjoyed by this revelation, Hestia explains that this new skill reflects his dream to become a hero. Soon after, Hestia leaves to attend the quarterly meeting of the gods known as Denadius Day. During this meeting, a second name will be decided for Belle. Walking down a hallway in the Temple of the Gods, Hestia is approached by Takumi Kazuchi, and the two first talk about Belle becoming rank 2 in less than 2 months. They then switch topics to a member of Takumi Kazuchi's familia named Yamato Mikoto reaching rank 2 as well. As Belle looks at his old armor set, Hestia barges into the scene and reveals to him his second name. That night, a dejected Belle tells Lily his second name is Little Rookie at the Hostess of Fertility. When asked as to why the two waitresses are joining them, Ryo confesses that it was at Mia's request. The topic then changes to Belle's plan to tackle the middle levels of the dungeon. Ryo advises Belle to not venture past the 13th level of the dungeon as the monsters in the levels past it are too difficult for him to handle. Therefore, she suggests that Belle recruit more people into his party. Just then, a muscular adventurer with facial scars and his party approach Belle's table, offering him to join his party in exchange for spending time with Ryo. On the other hand, Ryo rejects and briefly restrains him. This causes the man to try and retaliate, but Mia intervenes, causing the adventurer and his party to leave, but not before paying for their bill. The next day, Belle visits the Hephaestus Familia Novice Blacksmith store in hopes to find another set of armor by Welf Kratzo. Unable to find a set by Welf, Belle approaches the counter as the man behind it argues with a man about why his merchandise is always kept on the edge. Outside of the store, Belle and Welf talk and get acquainted with one another. This leads to Welf offering Belle a deal, to which Welf forges new equipment for Belle. In exchange, he joins Belle's party. Belle, Lily, and their newest member Welf reach the 10th floor of the dungeon. It's there that Lily voices her disapproval of Welf joining the party without her consent. Right after Belle reveals Welf's full name, Lily reveals that Welf's family was once renowned for their magical weapons. This changed when the family lost their ability to produce them any longer, which ruined them. Coolly, Welf confirms a rumor, and there then imps and orcs start to sprout from the ground. The group then fights against the ambushing monsters, and as they do, Belle notes that he's become faster. A hard-armored monster appears, unleashing a spiral spin attack at the group, but is instantly defeated by Belle's firebolt attack. Realizing that his magic has also improved, this leads Belle to believe that he's getting closer in power to Ace. Welf notices a blue and white sparkle coming from Belle's right hand. Just then, an infant dragon appears, scaring away another adventurer party. Once the infant dragon spots Lily, it chases after her and is sequentially killed by Belle's firebolt magic. Afterward at the church, Hestia reveals that the sparkle was from his new Argonaut skill. Curious as to know if Hestia knows anything about Welf and his family, Hestia is asked by Belle if she knows anything about Welf's family. From what she's privy to, the Kratzo family once were able to forge magical swords. Furthermore, if the rumors are correct, Welf is the only one in his family that can. Welf brings Belle to his blacksmith workspace to forge him some new gear. Spotting a sword by some weapons hanging from the wall, Belle tries it out and is impressed by it. Welf then jumps to the conclusion that Belle wants him to forge a magical weapon to use, as he must have heard it from Hestia. Noticing that Belle was carrying around a minotaur horn, Welf decides to use that as material for his new piece of equipment. While forging the equipment, Welf confesses that he hates forging magical weapons because of the clientele he receives. Finished forging Belle a new knife, Welf notes that he's overall impressed by it and gives it to Belle. While in the dungeon, Lily explains to Belle and Welf about the monsters inhabiting the middle levels of the dungeon. The formation for the party is then elaborated on, and the group readies themselves to head off further into the dungeon. Hestia sees Belle off in front of the church. She notes the salamander wool that he's wearing, and Belle said that Ina claims it's a necessity for the mid-levels in the dungeon. With that settled, Belle heads off as Hestia calmly watches. Outside the dungeon, Takumi Kazuchi sees his familia off as they head into the dungeon. He's then approached by Hestia, and the two talk about how their familias are heading off into the mid-levels of the dungeon. Inside the dungeon, Belle's party faces off against a group of hellhounds, and soon after those are defeated, they're confronted by a group of Almiraj. Meanwhile, Hermes and the captain of his familia, Asphi, informs him about the nasty rumors surrounding Bel. The rumors, though, don't affect Hermes in the slightest, as Bel has piqued his curiosity. Hermes also questions Asphi if she's jealous of Bel attracting his attention, to which she vehemently denies. The two then head to the hostess of fertility and are met by Chloe and Seer. Back at the dungeon, Takumi Kazuchi's familia flees from a group of Almiraj while carrying a wounded party member. The familia leader Mikoto turns back to defeat the pursuing Almiraj, and soon after they're chased by a small pack of hellhounds. As this goes on, Bel's party fend for themselves against a large group of Almiraj. Uka, the one carrying the wounded party member, makes the executive decisions to not help Bel's party in favor of saving their own lives. Takumi Kazuchi's familia members run past Bel's group. The hellhounds that were pursuing them group with the Almiraj, creating a pass parade. Left with no other choice, Bel's group flees into a hallway, and on a narrow pathway, Bel uses his firebolt spell against the hellhounds. 3 hellhounds manage to pass through the firebolt, and Bel manages to defeat 2 of them, while Welf defeats 1 of them. The attack left Welf with an injury on his left arm, and the group soon realize that they're flanked. Bel then has a flashback back when Ryo warns Bel about the dangers of the mid-levels and how it can affect their party. Surrounded by a large number of Almiraj, more monsters spawn from the roof of the dungeon floor, causing it to collapse on top of them. After the dust from the collapse settles, Welf is shown to be incapacitated as his right ankle is caught underneath a rock. Lily, too, is shown to be exhausted of her energy as a hellhound appears and fires a fireball from its mouth. Panic-stricken, Hestia visits the guild and learns that Bel wasn't there either, as Aina inquires Hestia about Bel's whereabouts. Takumi Kazuchi arrives at the guild with a guilt-ridden Uka and Mikoto, returning to Bel's group, who manage to have lost sight of monsters. It's revealed that they've fallen 2 floors below the original level they were on. Seeking a route out of the dungeon, they hit another dead end. Sounds of surrounding monsters then fill the air, and Welf notes that if he becomes a burden to abandon him. Chiming in, Lily claims that if they manage to reach the safe zone level 18, it would be possible to make it back to the surface alive if they team up with a stronger group of adventurers. Furthermore, natural shafts located around the dungeon floors would make it possible to circumvent the need for taking the stair. Takumi Kazuchi and his familia, Hephaestus, Mayak, and his familia Dr. Naza discuss the matters involving Hestia's familia in the dungeon, with Hephaestus unable to send any support from her familia, as the ones that are capable of entering the mid-levels are with the Loki familia. Hermes arrives with Asphi and offers his help. Claiming his motives were to help an old friend of his motives are chastised by his fellow gods, as his interactions with Hestia have been bare. Even though so, Hermes claims his motives are sincere and goes as far as to offer Asphi to join the search party. Asphi, although begrudgingly, agrees to help out, and Hestia allows it. Bel and group are shown to indeed be alright, and have managed to climb down another level through a shaft. That night on the surface, Freya ponders what Hermes is up to and claims that only she can play with Bel. Back to Bel's group, the odor from their stick bag has been snuffed out, and then a Minotaur appears. Acting as if posseed by extreme emotions, Bel easily defeats the Minotaur, and then 3 more of the monster appear. Using the dropped weapon of the Minotaur he defeated, and the weapon being powered by his Argonaut skill, Bel defeats the 3 Minotaur, leaving him out of breath, and his companions distraught. Hestia and her group ready themselves to head into the dungeon. They're joined by Ryo. In the mid-levels of the dungeon, Ryo and Asphi act as vanguards, defeating a bunch of Almiraj and Hellhounds. Once they've finished the monsters off, the group progresses until they reach a cave-in. While Ryo climbs the rubble, Hestia finds one of Bel's weapons from it. At the top of the rubble, Ryo finds monster stones and empty potion vials left behind. In Asphi's deduction, she believes that Bel's group is heading for the safe zone on the 18th level. The notion is congruent with Ryo and Hermes, as well as Hestia, who still feels Bel's presence in the lower levels. Meanwhile, Welf suffers from mind down after overusing Will-O-Wisp, and Lily has passed out too. Not wanting to abandon his teammates, Belle carries them further into the dungeon and down a shaft leading them to the 17th level. Back to the search party, Hestia probes Hermes for his real motive as to why he wants to help find Belle. Hermes reveals that a certain someone asked him to, and it was also out of a personal interest of his. Reaching the Great Wall of Lamentation, Belle sees the exit to the 18th floor. As he heads to the exit, the floor boss starts to spawn, but Belle manages to avoid it and reach the exit. Finally, on the 18th floor, Ace approaches the group, and Belle begs her to help his comrades. Afterward, Belle awakens in a tent calling out to his comrades, and is met by Ace. The Sword Princess reveals to Belle that his comrades were healed by Riveria and her other comrades. Learning that Belle is able to walk, Ace has him report to her captain Findame. At the captain's tent, Belle thanks the captain and offers his services as thanks for their kindness. Finn divulges that many of their members have suffered from poisoning, and that the group they sent to the surface has yet to return with an antidote. Therefore, the Loki Familia plan on sojourning there for the time being. Walking through a forest area with Ace, Belle notes how the brightness area. The two then make it out of the forest and reach a single large tree with a brilliantly bright crystal formation above the tree. Ace reveals that as time passes, by its light disappears, creating night. That night, both Welf and Lily finally awaken, and they apologize to Belle for their incompetence. Belle, however, doesn't hold it against them. Appearing before them, Ace informs the group that dinner will be served soon. Belle and the group enjoy their dinner with the Loki Familia, and during it, Hestia and her search party arrive at the scene. An overly emotional Hestia tries to embrace Belle, but is pulled away from him by Lily, much to her dismay. Hermes then approaches Belle and introduces himself and the members of Takamikazuchi's Familia that helped out. In one of the tents, Mikoto prostrates herself to Belle, begging for his forgiveness. Although Belle has no qualms against Mikoto and her group, Lily and Welf have qualms against them for creating a past parade that endangered them. Hermes proposes they take it easy for the following day. Once this is settled, everyone leaves the tent. But before Welf can go, he's given a present that's from Hephaestus, as well as a message from her. Admiring the crystal formation above the single tree, Belle is soon joined by Ace, who worried about him. As the two talk, Ace promises to show Belle the city in the dungeon, which excites Belle. All of a sudden, Hestia appears in between the two, noting her exasperation about being excluded from the two's excursion the following day. Welf reflects on a flashback involving him and Hephaestus. Pushing Hestia forward up a roadside slope, Belle and Hestia finally regroup with the other adventurers at the top of it. Their view from there is noted to be spectacular, with the combination of the arboreous forest and crystal formation. Reaching their destination, the town of Rivera, the group enter it. The place is noted for its exorbitant prices for not only the wares, but also the inn's fees. While Hestia haggles with the shopkeeper, Belle runs into the man that confronted him in the bar. Tione offers Hestia to join her and the others for a bathing trip. Hestia agrees to it, and the ladies of the Takamikazuchi Familia decide to tag along. Hermes then grabs Belle's attention, wanting to discuss something with him at the camp. Back at the camp, Bet returns to the camp with the antidotes for the members of his Familia. To his astonishment, Bet sees Belle talking with Hermes and demands to know why Belle is there. Switching over to Belle and Hermes, the two of them observe the lake as the ladies bathe in the nude. Although Belle is against them peeping at the ladies while they bathe, Hermes argues that it's how men express their romance. It's then that Belle falls into the bathing area due to Hermes rotating around, making Belle lose his balance. The ladies surprised by Belle's sudden appearance. Belle is left flustered by Ace's nude body and flees in a mortified manner. Out of breath, Belle reaches where Rio was bathing. Sensing that someone was peeping on her, she throws a rock that flings by Belle at ultra-fast speed, leaving a hole in the tree that he stood next to. In retribution of this, Belle prostrates himself to Ryu and begs for forgiveness. That night at Rivera, the man that confronted Belle, whose name is revealed to be moored with his group, is frustrated by Belle's progress to that point. The next day, Bet unloads his anger onto Belle until he's carried away by Tioni and Tiona. Ace then approaches Belle, and the two talk about the plan to head back to the surface the following day. Hestia watches the entire conversation and curses Belle for peeping. Belle heads to the location where Hestia is being held hostage. Once he reaches there, Belle is confronted by Mord and his companions, and the adventurer challenges Belle to a one-on-one duel. If Mord wins, he wants all of Belle's possessions. On the other hand, if Belle wins, he wants his goddess returned to him. Impressed by Belle's gumption, the duel begins after Mord slams his sword on the ground, smashing a small crystal to bits. An invisible Mord attacks Belle from all sides. Soon, Welf, accompanied by the members of the Takamikazuchi Familia, arrive at the scene and fight against Mord's companions. Overhearing the fighting that's going on, the guards responsible for watching over Hestia decide to ditch the goddess and join their comrades in the fight. Now alone, Hestia is rescued by Lily, who is disguised as Almiraj. During the scuffle with Mord's men, Welf loses the present given to him by Hephaestus, and Ryu arrives at the scene to help out the group. Dodging the attacks with his eyes closed, Belle is now able to dodge all of Mord's attacks with ease. Annoyed that Belle is able to dodge his attacks, Mord draws his sword, uses it against Belle. Before Mord could attack Belle again, Hestia stops him by unleashing her godly might. Now embracing Belle, what's called an evil tremor occurs, and the ceiling of the level starts to crack open. Because Hestia unleashed her godly might, the dungeon retaliates by locking up the floor and spawning a Black Goliath there. Before Belle could head off to help fight against the Black Goliath, he's stopped by Ryu. She asks him if he should really go fight the monster with his current party, to which, after he gets everyone's approval, answers yes. Amused by the answer, Ryu notes that he's not qualified to be the leader, but he's not wrong either. Ryu then heads off to fight against the monsters, and after leaving Chigusa in charge of protecting Hestia, Belle and the party follow in suit. At the town of Rivera, Asfi meets with Bors and his group to have everyone in town assemble to fight against the monster threat there. Hesitant to agree to the order at first, he then learns that all exits out of the floor have been cut off. Bors and his men are then convinced to help out. Continuing her attack on the Black Goliath, Asif informs Ryu that reinforcements from Rivera are ready to help. As Asfi is roped into playing a decoy against the Black Goliath, Bor's comrades try and buy time for the mages to power up to cast a potent spell against the Black Goliath. When the mages are ready, they cast their individual spells on the Black Goliath, causing it to take massive damage. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the vanguard all charge at the Black Goliath, only to stop to the realization that it has the regeneration skill. Fully rejuvenated from its prior injuries, the Black Goliath launches several counterattacks against the adventurers. Encroached by an assortment of different kinds of monsters, Belle defeats a Minotaur and is then approached by Ryu and Asif. They plan on acting as decoys against the Black Goliath so the mages can cast another spell on it, and will continue doing so until the Goliath is defeated. Ryu struggles against the Black Goliath and its regeneration ability. As that goes on, Chigusa manages to reach Uka, who requests his shield from her. Although hesitant to do so, Uka still insists on making Chigusa cry from becoming emotional. Meanwhile, Belle charges his right hand with his Argonaut skill and fire a firebolt against the Black Goliath. The attack blows off the top of the monster's head, but it still fires off a roar blast at Belle, sending him flying into the air. Once Hestia and Lily reach Belle, surrounded by Ryu, Asfi, Chigusa, and Mikoto, they inform the goddess that while Belle is alive, he's taken severe injuries. Asfi then heads off to fight against the Black Goliath again, and is soon joined by Ryu at Hestia's request. Hermes then appears before Hestia and Lily, speaking a quote once given by Belle's grandfather. Because of this, Belle awakens and confronts the Black Goliath while wielding a large two-handed sword, while being empowered by his Argonaut skill. As Belle charges up for his attack against the Black Goliath, Asfi blinds it and Ryu casts luminous wind on it. Mikoto then briefly restrains the monster with Futsanamatama, allowing Welf to use his magical sword, Kazuki, on it. Thanks to his companions buying enough time for him to charge up, Bel uses the heroic shot on the Kazuki Black Goliath to obliterate its upper body. Bel then uses Hestia's knife to finish off the remains. A rhapsodic Hermes audaciously declares to the person who he promised to watch over Bel, Zeus, that his grandson isn't a failure. He in fact is the last hero bequeathed from his familia. Back on the surface, Bel and his companions celebrate their accomplishments back at the hostess of fertility. Afterward, Bel lays on Hestia's lap as the two rest easy together.